He was a fighter pilot dedicated to the service with all he had. Even God and family came in second, as he says. But then something changed, and Moose Moore's life was turned upside down. In today's episode of Waking Up in America, we talk about how the tragedy of 9/11 triggered his passion to protect those most vulnerable and empower them to live safely in a dangerous world. I'm Tajci. At 19, I was a superstar, and I was lost inside. I left it all behind, switched continents, and started all over. Years later, I found myself lost again, this time in the American dream. This is a story about awakening, about living the life you were created for, about going inward and discovering the joyous and purposeful person you and I are both meant to be. This is Waking Up in America. Moose, thank you for being a guest on Waking Up in America.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here.
So was Moose your fighter plane?
Yes, a call sign.
Name.
Call sign. So it was my call sign, but I have a twin brother that we went into service together. And when I was actually in high school, one of the coaches named me, "You're a moose, you're a moose," when I was 15. Well, it was kind of a quiet call sign or nickname until I got into the service, and my twin brother and I went to flight school together, and so it followed me as we went into flight school, and then it followed me as a fighter pilot.
It's a great name. Let's introduce what you do to our audience. You're a founder and principal teacher of the Vigilance Group.
The Vigilance Group. The Vigilance Group was born out of, and you mentioned 9/11. From 9/11, I tried to go back in the service. I'd been retired for a while, and they wouldn't take me, and I was very disappointed because I wanted to, I felt like I could contribute again, and I kind of understood what our nation was going to go through, and we're still going through that, by the way.
Yes.
We're still under attack in lots of ways. So
life changed for all of us after 9/11.
And it still has. And so because of that, I started doing some anti-terrorism work in our own country, because I felt like if I can't go in the service and fight overseas, then I'll try to fight here inside our borders and try to protect. That was my mission.
So the Vigilance Group is, you're teaching?
I'm teaching people how to live safely in a dangerous world.
Yes.
What I've learned is that most people don't fully understand how to stay safe. It's understanding what vigilance means. It's a simple word in our English language, but I try to make people understand how to recognize when something's wrong and how to respond to it. So what we teach in vigilance is awareness and avoidance, and then action of some sort. I call it a skill set.
Yes.
For 20 years in the service, I learned how to be aware of so many things. I know as a fighter pilot, we didn't talk about this, but when you're closing at 1,000 knots closure and you've got seconds to make a decision from 10 miles away, you have to recognize danger. You have to know how you're going to handle it long before you get to that, as we call it, the merge, the fight. So I took that analogy and said, I've got to teach people how to recognize danger long before it happens to them, so they can make a decision.
And these days when we all walk like this with our phones.
The day that the iPhones and not paying attention, and we're in more trouble than we've ever been.
Yeah, and even, maybe it's not even technology as much as, we like to be in our little bubbles, I noticed.
I call that location immunity. We think we're safe. One of the things that we teach regardless where your environment is. You could be in the safest part of your hometown, but you're really not safe. You have to understand that not everybody thinks like you do. We have this ability to think, well, I'm a good person. I would never hurt someone. No one would hurt me. And you've got to understand that there's evil out in this world. And so I try to just bring it to the forefront. You have to put it in someone's brain sometime for them to understand it.
But you don't want to create paranoia.
No, absolutely not.
Right? Because I want to walk on the street and I want to see someone who might look like, a person that I think would be dangerous.
Yeah.
But I think, no, they're a beautiful human being, and I'm gonna.
And I totally agree with that. In fact, we call it behavior. It's not on looks. And so the Israelis taught me when I was with the Israelis. They said, in the Mediterranean we all look the same.
Right.
So you have to look at the behavioral indicators. It's what their behavior is. And so a lot of times I'll tell women that I train, a man with no purpose. Now what does that mean, a man with no purpose?
Oh, I can tell you.
Yeah. And because you kind of recognize that. You've seen that before when you're walking. And so that's the kind of thing we have to recognize. That doesn't mean you're paranoid. You'd wear yourself out being paranoid. But you need to change some of the way you think and some of your habits. You lock your door. You're not on your cell phone all the time. You make sure you don't park in a dark garage. You're with someone when you go to the grocery store at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. Those are just those little simple things that we try
Sounds to me
teach.
like you're awakened. You are walking through this world awakened. We're talking to Moose Moore, founder and principal teacher at the Vigilance Group. And when we come back, we'll explore his turning point in his life that shifted him into the work he does today. Do you feel stuck in life? Are you waiting for a miracle? Would you like to transform your pain and anxiety into joy and freedom? Here's how. The answers are in my book, Turning Points. There are dozens of stories of people like you, people stuck in addictions, abuse, and bad relationships. But they all took that first step. They all went on a transformational journey, and so can you. Visit wakinguprevolution.com, amazon.com, or any major online bookseller. Get your copy and turn your life around today. We're talking to Moose Moore, the founder and principal teacher at the Vigilance Group. Thank you for all the work that you do.
Well, I feel like it's God's work.
Oh.
I feel like there's a reason I'm doing this. So
yeah, and how? So we're gonna get to that point. Like,
yeah.
how did you know, become aware, awakened that it's God's work?
That's a good question.
Yes.
You know, I flew in the service for 20 years.
Tell me, how does that feel when you're in that fast plane?
You know, it's I realize that I'm probably in a very small percentage of people that have done that.
Right.
I didn't know I wanted to be a pilot. I had no idea. I'd lost my father into a fighter crash when I was a small child, so maybe I had a fear, I'm not sure, but it obviously was in my DNA. So when you fly a fighter, it's part of your body. It's just part of who you are. And so I did that for a long time. But at the 18-year point, and you kind of alluded to this, flying was the most important thing. Right. If they said go, I went. I might tell my wife, or I might not. There was no cell phones back at the time.
You're still married to your wife?
I'm still married to her 45 years later.
Wow.
She's a good woman. So, but the point was that I did everything for flying. Family and God came somewhere down below that. At the 18-year point, so I'm 40 years old, I'm flying the hottest fighter in the world, and one of my young men that worked for me said, hey, you want to fly tomorrow against some airplanes off the Atlantic Ocean, practice? And I said, certainly I'll do that. That's every man's dream, is to go out and dogfight. And then I said, wait a second. And I pulled out my little day planner back in the day, and I looked at the schedule, and my daughter was a junior in high school. And I said, wait a second, she has a softball game tomorrow. I can't fly tomorrow. I got to watch her play softball. And I mean, I had no sooner said that when I realized that my life had changed.
Wow.
That it was time for family. I still tell people I get family and God somewhat confused. That's a hard thing to do,
because we learn to love God through our families. That's what.
So I'm very rich in family. So it was a good decision for me. I got out at 20 years when I was still young enough.
Yeah, let me just. Yeah. I want to go deep into that feeling that day that you. Okay, so here's your torn. What did it feel like?
Well, I think that in certain ways it's a relief. I think the whole time that you're competing and you're in the service, you are competing. It's a competition constantly.
Right. So you had to kind of like defeat your ego at that point.
My ego was pretty large. It always was. You had to have a large ego to fly fighters, and you had to always realize that I still call myself the second greatest fighter pilot. I'm not sure who number one is, but the point was, when I did make that decision, I realized it was the right decision, and so for the next year and a half or 2 years, it was easy to deal with. I knew what I was going to do. I knew that I was going to get out. Now, after I got out, I regretted sometimes. I would say, why did I do that?
And those moments were?
I would start wandering in my head, but yes. I don't do that anymore. I realize why I'm doing this.
And so then it was again your daughter that brought you to the second turning point.
Yeah, it was. In fact, it was the same daughter, as a matter of fact. So for the record, I have 3 children and I have 10 grandchildren. And so my oldest daughter is who I decided I had to go watch her play softball. She was also a sorority mentor or an advisor at the college level when she was a young mother. This was in 2008.
So after 9/11,
after
you
9/11,
had already tried to...
I was trying to do anti-terrorism work and with the Israelis here in the United States. And then there was this tragic not assassination, mass attack at Virginia Tech, where 31 college kids were killed. And then I started shifting gears and saying, maybe I need to pay attention to what's happening to our young people and within the borders of the United States. So in 2008, my daughter calls me. And at the time, I was part of the Air Marshal Service. I was doing part of that in my other job that I had. I'm retired from that, so I can say that. And my daughter called me and said, Dad, there's been a tragedy at this university. A little girl was abducted and killed. The first homicide at that university in 150 years. And she said, Dad, when you were in the service, you used to teach us how to escape and survive. I had two beautiful daughters and still do. So she said, Dad, would you come speak to my sorority? It was 100 girls in that sorority. And I said, absolutely, I'll be there in 2 days. And I spoke to 2,000 girls. And when I spoke to those 2,000 girls, I realized what my mission was. And that's where I am right now. I call it my God's work. There's a reason, and I've reflected on this a lot, why God kept me alive. I could count on my hands, both hands, the number of times I probably should have not be here.
Wow.
But I realize there's a reation for that now. So that's my passion.
After having such wonderful two careers, successful careers, now Moose is stepping into being a protector of those most vulnerable. And his life shifts again. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Vigilance Group and how you and I can benefit from his work. We're talking to Moose Moore, the founder of the Vigilance Group, who teaches us how to live safely in a dangerous world.
Yes.
So here you are talking to 2,000 girls
yes.
at the college. Did you feel that could have been my daughter?
Well, no, absolutely. In fact, I didn't know that I had a business coming out of this. I went there specifically because my daughter was hurting as one of the young adults there. And these girls were scared to death. And as a matter of fact, by the time I got there, they had just caught the gentleman, not the gentleman, the person that did the killing. But they were still frightened because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they could walk the streets, come out of the dormitories. And so for me, it was a feeling of pride. I didn't have any audio-visual support. I just was standing at the podium talking, using my hands and talking about how to look for things and how to react. And I was just trying to plant the seed. You know, our young people, I've learned this through all the studies I've done. You know, your insurance companies won't rent a car to anyone under 25 years of age, and there's a reason for that. It's just that it's a developmental stage and a person's maturity level. So,
and I understand you don't have as much fear.
That's exactly right. You just don't recognize it. Right. So I wanted to make sure it's an ugly subject. I tell parents all the time, this is an ugly subject. Nobody wants to talk about it. Parents, we don't want to talk about it. I will tell you this because it's very important, and this came out 3 years ago. The girl that was murdered at the university, I invited her father 3 years after her death because I honored her, and I wanted him to know I was honoring his daughter, and I used her image and I used her story. So I invited him, and he called me 6 months later. I was on my cell phone. I wasn't sure who it was. And he calls me and he says, Moose, this is Jim, and he stated his last name. My heart sunk. I didn't want to talk. I knew who it was.
Right.
It was the father of this Slain college co-ed.
Yes.
And he said, thank you very much for inviting me. He says, it means a lot to me that you would use my daughter as to try to help other children. He says, but I can't come. It's too soon.
Yes.
It was 3 years later. And then he says this to me, and he says, I never taught her anything. And he stopped talking. And I could feel the tears just rolling down his cheeks. And I said, it's not your fault. There's evil out there, and so that's what drives me right now. You
know, I grew up in Croatia in a different culture, and maybe we listened to the old people more. We had time to, we spent a lot of time with our grandparents, so they passed down their knowledge.
Sure.
I don't know what I would teach my sons.
Well, and I'm a parent, so I understand this. We as parents don't want to scare our children. And I hear that from a lot of parents. Well, I don't want to scare my child. And
well, and you don't want them to be mistrustful and bring that paranoia in.
So what you just have to teach them, and you can do a role playing, and you can say, well, how would you handle this? And what if somebody came to you and asked for this question? And so for children, it's a fine line, but as they get to be 13, 14 years of age, you're not scared of them anymore. They've seen plenty. You know, our media allows that. And so I tell these young people, then you have to recognize when it's dangerous, and if it doesn't fit, don't go there, and just be smart about it. And it's hard for a parent to tell their own child anything that they're going to try to listen to, especially when it's about danger. But I do think there's a point. I tell people all the time, give me your child for 2 hours. I can change their life.
And I understand you do this in schools and colleges and churches and organizations. You are a small group.
Yes.
And you mentioned to me some of your friends, or you hear people say, you're trying to boil the ocean.
Yeah,
I think that's a great saying.
You know what I've come to, I try to say one at a time.
Yes.
Just one at a time. It's that story where you can only do so much. My ego is now set aside that I don't have to speak to thousands at a time. Give me 10.
Yes, but as you empower others and teach others, you know, then we become a culture of teaching that, you know, people like yourself who have the gift to teach that and pass it on.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yes, and that's great. And, you know, the way I met you was our crew that produces, my husband and produces our show, produced your video.
Yes.
And that's one way to let people know. But
we're going to do more. We realize that we have a message that people can learn. It's not about trying to teach one to be a martial artist, to be a fighter. That's not what it's about. It's about understanding vigilance and awareness and how to respond. And everybody can learn to do that. And that's our goal. We're going to try to reach out and touch as many as we can.
Well, thank you. And I think, you know, like I said earlier, I think that just brings us even more into that awareness. And then not just be afraid of, not be just aware of the danger around us, but also we become aware of all the good things around us.
Absolutely. No, I want to encourage that.
Yes. We're talking to Moose more, and when we come back, we have some more fun stuff for you.
Are you planning a live event? Looking to bring inspiration and a fresh approach to wake up your community or organization? Tajci's keynote concerts are transformational experiences that lead your audience to a life of joy, authenticity, courage, and purpose. Book Tajci for your next event now by visiting wakinguprevolution.com.
We're here with Moose Moore, and now it's time for one-word answers.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay, let's try.
I love these. What makes you most alive?
Air.
What is your biggest challenge?
Weight.
One thing you would change about yourself?
My temper.
If you could have anything in the world, it would be?
A P-51.
What's that?
A fighter plane.
Oh, wow. What one thing would you give to your daughter today for her 16th birthday?
Martial art lessons.
Nice. Your hobby?
Exercise.
Last book you read?
The Bible.
Favorite sports?
Hockey.
Music or silence?
Music.
Forest or ocean?
Forest.
East or west?
West.
Sailing or parachuting?
Parachuting.
Chocolate or carrots?
Chocolate.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
City or country?
Country.
Your favorite hero?
John Wayne.
Wow. You're most grateful for?
My faith.
All that our world needs is?
More faith.
If I could abolish anything from the earth, it would be?
Sex trafficking.
This year, you claim?
Freedom.
Thank you. Okay, so I have viewers that, you know, I'll let know who my guests were going to be. And so Stanley David from Detroit, Michigan, was mugged once walking out of the library. He wants to know, what would you do if you are in the library and there's a shooter? In those situations, he says, there's no amount of prevention that could have prevented the emergency situation. So what would you do?
I get asked this question a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't call them active shooters, I call them active murderers that would come into a place. If someone were to come into a room that I cannot run from, if it's in the room in the library and I'm there, I'll pick up a chair, I'll pick up a table, you'll have a human strength, superhuman strength, and I would attack him. I would attack the attack. Because if you stay where you are you're probably going to die that day. So my philosophy is to attack the attack. That's what the Israelis taught me. And I would pick up a table or a chair. They can deflect a lot of bullets. And I would go after them. We teach from that scenario, if everybody were to pick something up and throw it, because there's a reflex that you just can't control as a person. And then once they move, you can close a lot of distance very quickly. But I have to get my hands on the shooter. And hopefully I'd help. But I would go for the shooter, and I would, believe it or not, you would have strength that you wouldn't know that you had.
Yes, and I would probably just pray that somebody like you is in the room with me. So, okay, if there's one thing that you could teach me.
I think the most important thing, and this works for men as well.
Okay, should I put this down?
Yeah, put your iPad down. So it's when you sense danger and when you sense you're uncomfortable, I build a fence, and the fence is just from here. So if you notice what I did, I immediately put 1 foot forward for balance. So I'm a neutral position. You're neutral. Your feet are together. I would take 1 foot. Are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
I would just take that left foot and put it out slightly.
Okay, hold on. I want to do the whole thing. So I'm walking. And I'm sensing that something's happening. Okay.
I would stop, I would turn, I would go no, and I would put my hands up.
Oh wait, so I'm
approaching you. I'm approaching you. I'm the bad guy.
Okay.
You're coming down.
So I'm just walking.
And you should never allow me to get this close to you.
Right.
So somewhere in here, you probably would say, "Get away."
Okay.
Put your hands up. But if I got this close to you, from here you have to show a position of strength. And I do that by putting my hands up in front of my face. So put your hands up just like that, and you're strong here. So this is an outside 90.
Okay.
So I can't push you away. And if you think about it, put your hands up. You can block me. But from here, most importantly, if I came in this and I would take this palm strike, and I would hit called a heel palm strike right here, that hard, and I'd hit me as hard as you could right in the nose. And it would stun me, but there's not a person alive that can take a hit to the nose. And I would take that palm and I would hit as hard as I can in the nose. If he doesn't release, I'd hit that again, and then I would take those fingers and I'd go right for the eyeballs.
Okay.
We are the most vulnerable. Men are the most vulnerable from here. You've got your respiration, you've got nerve and blood, and in this you can do a lot of damage here. And so
for me, I would want to practice that before. So that's how I operate.
Yeah.
I can be efficient in a crisis situation if I can practice.
Sure. You can practice that in front of a mirror. You can practice that with your partner. I would just cure
with my husband.
With your husband, with a friend. I would at least get used to, and you have to be your best weapon is your voice. A lot of people raise their daughters to be gentle spirits, not to fight baby brother, not to pull hair, not to scream, do everything very ladylike, and we send them off, and they're totally unprepared. And so I just want people to understand that you can be strong as a female. You're plenty strong. Right now you could, and here's what I tell women that are moms. I always ask, how many moms do we have in the audience? And they ran. How many mama bears do we have in the audience?
Ooh,
what would you do to protect your child?
Yeah.
You do anything.
Anything.
You would do anything.
Right.
And you would pull out whatever you had inside to protect the life of your children.
Absolutely. Yes, but you're so right. We are conditioned to be gentle, to not go there. So we even take away that that ability, that knowledge. I want to know that I can do this.
You can, and it's about confidence. And it's about being loud, and most women don't want to make a scene. We're taught to be nurturers and take care.
I don't have a problem yelling.
Well, yelling could be your best weapon. I mean, screaming it, yelling from the bottom of your guttural as you can, and that's a great weapon. Well, and hands up.
Thank you, and we will have links to your website, so people can go and invite you to their schools or
we'll go anywhere.
Yes,
we go anywhere.
And this is so cool because we just talked about the artist that you brought in, Amy.
Yes, Amy Estrada.
And she performs a song that talks about that girl that's not all, I can't do it.
It's you can be strong on the outside, but we're all vulnerable, and particularly a lot of women. And young women now that are out and about and they're professional and they're out at night, they show strength on the outside, but everybody's vulnerable. And so her song, I think, brings that out, but you can still be very strong. And Amy has done just that. She's come a long way from home to enhance her career, and she's shown a lot of strength. It's a beautiful song. I think it's very fitting for us.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you
bringing
very
her
much
and-
for letting me be
Yes.
here.
She's like a spring flower that catches the morning light just right. Life of the party, brightest star in the dead of night. Her smile drives all the boys crazy. They all melt every time she calls them baby. They think she's perfect. She's known around town, just like the front page of news. She goes where the wind takes her like there's nothing to lose. She's the first one you call when your heart's broken. Yeah, she's constant like the tide of the ocean. She's heard it all before. I've heard it all before. Yeah, I'm tough as nails. I could shoot a gun. I'm one of the boys. I know how to have fun. I put up a wall. Yeah, I try acting tough. Throw on a smile when really I've just had enough. You paint me perfectly, but you can't see through me. I don't cry pretty. She holds on to her family like they're everything and more. Stands up for what's right. She knows what she's hiding for. She's proud, but she has her moments. Her word is good. She's lived every one she's spoken. She's heard it all before. I've heard it all before. Yeah, I'm tough as nails. I could shoot a gun. I'm one of the boys. I know how to have fun. I put up a wall. Yeah, I try acting tough. Throw on a smile when really I've just had enough. You paint me perfectly, but you can't see through me. I can be tough as nails, shoot a gun. One of the boys know how to have fun. Put up a wall and try acting tough. Throw on a smile when I've had enough. Yeah, I'm tough as nails. I could shoot a gun. I'm one of the boys. I know how to have fun. I put up a wall. Yeah, I try acting tough. Throw on a smile when really I've just had enough. You paint me perfectly, but you can't see through me. I don't cry pretty. I don't cry pretty when I'm all alone. When you hurt my feelings on the phone. No, I don't cry pretty.
I hope today's episode is inspiring you to wake up and be vigilant and learn how to live safely in our world today. Visit wakinguprevolution.com where you'll find links to Moose and the Vigilance Group and learn, be empowered, know that you are not helpless. And then let's change the world. Let's together make it a safer place. If you like what we bring to you, these amazing stories and people who are game changers in our world, consider becoming a monthly contributor. Go to patreon.com/wakingup and pledge your contribution. You'll receive backstage footage, special messages, all kinds of perks, and you'll have a good feeling that you too are making a difference. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon. Stay safe.
I'm Olga Alexeyeva. I'm the artist and owner of O Gallery. This episode was filmed at my studio at Marathon Village, Nashville. Please visit us at ogalleryart.com. Thank you.